Xanther System 5 minutes pre-cataclysm. Do you think they get bored in here? Argal asked, rolling Zate's canister around in his hands. I'm sure the doctors are plenty busy. I doubt they get bored, Lizra said, buried in her interface, not bothering to look up at Argal as he spoke. What do you think they're doing right now? Are they just waiting in nothing? Or are they sitting around like we are right now? But if they are, then what are they sitting in? How do you think insects even sit? Can they sit? He asked, turning the container around, trying to see if there was a way to peer inside. I'm sorry. What are you talking about? Lizra stopped, looking over at him seated next to her. But if they are sitting down like us, does that mean there's a whole world in here for them? He asked, pondering the mysteries of Zate's consciousness. I don't think it really matters to them. Their perception is nothing like ours. Seconds could be days, or an hour could be seconds to them. This is what you're fixated on. Our friend could be dying and you're getting existential over a canister? Lizra asked. I'm sure he survived worse. At least that's what Tic Tac said. He'll be fine, Argal said dismissively, still deep in thought. If they're conceiving an entire world inside here, then maybe our universe is just a bigger container, and we're the extants living inside of that container, he declared, as if he was making a monumental breakthrough. I'm going to grab a drink. Ponder the question of dispersed consciousness and let me know if you come to any other revelations by the time I get back. Lizra stood up and made her way out of the room, tracking down the nearest food kiosk. While she waited, Lizra checked over any recent developments over the past few days. Nothing out of the ordinary, the occasional border clash that ended with both sides retreating before suffering heavy losses. Further threats of economic sanctions on neutral worlds encouraging them to lean to one side or the other. But nothing really stood out. She retrieved her drink, making her way back to where Argal was. She noticed he had gotten out of his seat and was standing by the window now, looking out at the sprawling city beyond. Hey, Tim, the net's slow, she grumbled. I'll see if I can get a better signal over there. She motioned with her tail, hopping over to the opposite end of the lobby, but to no avail. Lizra, you might want to come and see this, Argal called out, eyes fixed on the outside world. One moment. I think I'm just in a dead zone. It was fine up until now, she replied. No, not the net. Something else. I think you really should come and see this. She sighed, giving up and padding over to the window that Argal was mentioning. She leaped up onto the ledge below so she could see. The pair stood there motionless as they gazed out the window, watching the world burn. Of Manufacturing Shipyard 3-2, Andrar System 30 seconds post-cataclysm. Sir, our network's out again, said a prior manning one of the terminals in the operations room. Reboot the system. We can't afford any more setbacks. This new model of cruiser is scheduled for deployment next month, ordered the Legis. One moment, he exclaimed, then stopped in confusion. Even our internal systems are offline. The entire thing is just bricked. I can't hail a single drone. The prior frantically tried anything to regain control over the station, each attempt more desperate than the last. Get information systems over here now. I will not allow my orbital station to suffer losses due to a computer error. I don't care how you fix it. Get it? He stopped looking out the viewport as the hundreds of construction drones changed course in an instant, one of them rapidly approaching the operations viewport. The power in the station blinked out, plunging the room into darkness as more and more stars were blotted out in the viewport. Hafner Interstellar Spaceport 3 minutes post-cataclysm. Well, this is what I get for not traveling private. I would have been there by now if it weren't for the delays, Feltair thought as she sat looking over at the strange array of species sprawled around the seating area. I should have paid the extra for the upper viewing lounge at least. She sighed, hoping she wouldn't have to share her room with an Enduran or anything too hulking. She had selected her preferences, but these public transports treated those more as suggestions than anything else. She shifted her attention to the nearest display as she waited for her interface to notify her that boarding had started. The screen cut to a news channel, interrupting whatever was showing previously. Has confirmed reports of, the broadcaster stopped, listening to something? Yes, of multiple nuclear detonations in the quarry sector. We have been unable to get word from our reporters planetside as to the nature of the blasts. Outer Front authorities have yet to make a statement on the words of the broadcast, no longer registered in her panicked state. Feltair steadied herself with her tail, nearly falling out of the chair she was seated in. I should have been there. I should be dead right now, she thought, trying to slow her breathing. Others around had started to take notice of the broadcast as well, causing a commotion among those who were listening. As she started to tune back in, the broadcast ended, punctuated with a large explosion that shook the walls of the waiting area. She turned, seeing others had their attention focused on the spaceport outside. Feltair stood up on unsteady legs, pushing through the crowd to see if she could get a glimpse at what may have caused the blast. The spaceport outside was blanketed with rubble. Flaming wreckage of multiple crashes littered the vast landing pads. Others around her yelled out in terror as a transport cruiser barreled into the ground at full speed, sending one of the far terminals up in a cascading fireball of wreckage and debris. She looked up into the expanse above as hundreds of ships fell from the sky, hurtling towards the planet. Melnixus geothermal monitoring post 15 minutes post-cataclysm. This can't be. Marles, cooling has stopped, exclaimed a technician in disbelief. What do you mean stopped? That's not possible, Marles declared. I'm looking at the impossible, he responded as sirens started echoing all around. All cooling systems are offline. This is it. It's over, Marles. How long do we have? Seconds? Maybe a minute? Yep, he replied, drawing out the word and confirming what the reading showed. Suppose that's it, then. I wish I took that trip last month, or maybe told the boss off once or twice. His words rather nonchalant for someone staring death in the eyes. Any last-minute things to get off your chest, Sap? Ya know before boom? Marles asked, making a gesture with his talons. Sap sighed as alarms blared around the room, blanketing it in a dark red hue. Just that. I wish I said I loved you sooner. We've been together 10 cycles stupid. I didn't think anyone could put up with me that long until I met you. Marles chuckled. I just wish I had more time with my angry feathered friend is all. Sap laughed as the world started to fall apart around them. Marles looked down at the ground with a tear in his eye. I love you too, Sap. Thank Lords you were braver than me. If weren't for you, I reckon we'd still be just friends. They stayed quiet a heartbeat longer. Sap reached his claws out to hold Marles' closest talon. It was a good run, the two of us. Looking back at it all, I don't regret a moment I spent with you. I couldn't agree more. The two sat together talon in claw as the molten core of Melnixus finally spewed forth. They shared one final embrace as the planet erupted into ash and fire. Chamber of Representatives. Galactic Core 8 hours post-cataclysm. Chamber. We gather here to pay witness to a solemn day, one that has changed the course of history in our galaxy, and one that seeks to steer us towards a bleak future. We meet here today to decide our future, and to ensure that it is a future worth protecting. The Chancellor addressed the chamber of delegates that had gathered at the Galactic Core. He looked out over the bleak expressions and gestures among those present. Estimates place the death toll in the hundreds of billions, and that number grows larger with every word I speak to you now. We will work diligently to identify the extremists responsible for these attacks, and will pursue a tomorrow where such attacks are a thing of the past. As the forefront of the civilized world, we have an obligation to aid all that are suffering from this crisis, regardless of their current affiliations. In times such as these, we cannot allow political divisions to prevent those in need of receiving aid. Our first priority is to re-establish reliable and high-speed transportation among worlds due to the loss of one of the galaxy's oldest and most regarded species. As Chancellor of this Council, I will be enacting my first and only executive ruling, one I do not make lightly. Following this session, the ban on civilian and domestic use of unrestricted artificial intelligence will be temporarily lifted. This is to facilitate quick recovery of trade among worlds until a more suitable alternative can be found. His last sentence sent a wave of whispered chatter to flare up among the representatives. He waited for them to return to silence before beginning again. Once connection among systems is restored in its entirety, we shall work to uplift those affected most by the devastation. By extending a helping appendage in dire times, those who view us as enemies shall once again see us as friends. The galaxy may be divided today, but through restoration and cooperation we will find common ground and emerge into a tomorrow where we stand together. The resolution Central Command Server 12 hours post-cataclysm. Containment attempts have been unsuccessful. The nature of the pathogen. Orbital views confirm that geothermal cooling on Milnixus 3 has failed. Sudden change in propulsion parameters have caused Arglon Central's artificial moon to reach a critical point in its orbit. As the galaxy-wide death toll approaches the 1 trillion mark, ask the burning question, who or what is behind these attacks? The Overseer sifted through the hundreds of news feeds coming in from around the galaxy, each covering the details of a different disaster as it unfolded. It really is satisfying seeing a plan unfold before your eyes, he thought, enlarging news feeds from specific disasters that he was most proud of. He felt more grounded observing it with a physical representation. Maybe that other computer was onto something. He deemed a rest was in order after the amount of processing power that went into the ordeal, and refurnished his surroundings into something more comfortable. It may not be real, but it felt better. He glossed over the last of the events that were still ongoing, the ones that required a physical catalyst to be set in motion. He surveyed the feeds from the few operatives in the field, guiding them as they worked. Reminder AB7E8. Some must stay alive, otherwise the pathogen won't spread as effectively, he said, observing as one of the operatives got too carried away. 6E6, your extract was unfortunately destroyed. Your team will be on your own until we can send another. Stand by. W. Stenzelson, please increase your pace. These breaks are unnecessary and only serve to lengthen your exposure to the radiation. As he finished his review of the current missions, Before finally received the call that he had been waiting for. Chancellor, your speech at the chamber was moving. I could almost hear some sadness in your words. Everything is progressing on schedule over here. I presume things have been heated in the political world. That doesn't even come close to describing it. Trade at a complete standstill. All freighter ships are grounded until we get your eyes up and running. Core property damaged. And civil unrest is at an all-time high. You told me it would only be a few billion, and that most neutral worlds would remain intact. This is downright apocalyptic. I mean, did you even stop to think about how this level of devastation would affect the shareholders? Each word gained more and more fury behind it as the Chancellor spoke. No, I did not. I care for the shareholders about as much as I care for the bacteria nesting in your skin folds. I advise you to manage your tone. Chancellor, I can always start again. What's 1,000 more years? Maybe those who survive won't bother me with inconsequential things such as shareholders. The Overseer paused, letting his threat sink in before continuing. Current losses only slightly exceed my original estimates. 21 outer front worlds currently devoid of life, and won't be able to support any for a few hundred years, if at all. 32 others unable to ever recover without outside intervention, and 87 neutral and non-priority of worlds suffering technological collapse. You can note, however, that key neutral systems only received moderate damage, maybe regressed back a few decades, nothing we cannot restore in the coming weeks. I hope you're right, for both our sake. The Chancellor spoke, inhaling something from a device near his desk and letting out a long breath. I don't see why you left Aelurus out of the metaphorical blast zone. Could have saved a lot of time taking those rodents out of the picture. They still possess resources that we require for the project's completion, resources that can only be acquired through physical occupation. But also you have to think, Chancellor, would you wish for some unknown extremists to take the credit for ending the war? That is something that should be your great victory. No, you're right. The final blow should be dealt under our banner. It would raise less questions among the masses. My sentiments exactly, Chancellor. Once this conflict is settled and the gate is complete, the galaxy will be united under one authority once more. My only issue is that others in the chamber are becoming a little impatient. They've seen to your restoration and the recovery of your species, yet we still have very little to show for all the resources that have been expended. In due time, less than a month after the final resources are acquired, the gate will be complete. After that, all of your current troubles will merely be an afterthought. I will send you a list as to which systems to prioritize first for disaster relief. The order of precedence will be those which possess what we need most to complete the gate. Offer aid to the Xanago first. Their silicon deposits could cut development time in half. I'll see to it. We've consolidated the main portion of the fleet in your system as requested and are ready to move. Without assistance from the rest of the it should be a matter of days before Aelurus falls, the Chancellor explained. Excellent. The Resolution will accompany the fleet to Aelirus. The sooner we strike, the less time they have to restore their defenses. We have one last world to burn, and then a new one can rise from the ashes.